Guys, welcome back to the channel. So today's video is going to be a little bit more about the CBDC hearing, and so basically the lawmakers in the US they're worried and they have a little anxiety about being behind China's digital yen. So basically, congressional lawmakers believe the US is behind when it comes to the central bank digital currencies. But members are asking industry experts by how much, like how far are they behind? Through the hearing bore the title of Promise and Pearls of the Central Bank Digital Currencies, most lawmakers devoted their time to questioning how detrimental is it to the U.S. to drag its feet on a digital dollar, which elements of a project would benefit from public action or private sector solutions. Representative Jim Hayes and Andy Barr both opened with concerns of inaction. Hines wondered what time the horizon of inaction could cause the U.S. to lose the ability to lead and innovate in the CBDC landscape. Hines asked simply, is it 3 months or 3 years behind? They're trying to figure out how far behind they are, especially since China has already launched their digital yen. Even though they're not like a full-scale launch, they've done kind of a soft launch. And like we talked about before, they're using a little bit for subway terminals and some other things like that. They're kind of like directly from consumer to government transactions. While panelist Julie said putting a countdown clock on failing irrevocability behind is unrealistic, she did point to key metrics. What I look for a sign that the U.S. has missed the mark of the train leaving the station would be wide-scale adoption of a central bank digital currency and cross-border leaps. So they're worried about another country's central bank basically creating their version of a dollar, US dollar, or their equivalent, and then having that being used more over here in the US. I don't really feel like they have to worry about this too much because even though China's rolled out their yen, I don't plan on buying the yen and using the yen to buy stuff. I think there's a lot of like nationalism in there. China's going to use their dollar, their currency, their dollar, the yen, and the U.S. is going to use theirs. Just like you wouldn't expect a lot of other countries really to pick up something different, especially when you know what things cost in your native currency. Then to try to turn around and spend your money on things in another currency, you have to do the whole equation factor and everything else like that. When you know how to spend your own dollar, basically, whether it's digital or paper, what a dollar is worth. So I don't see them leaping borders and crossing borders. So she's saying it's basically unrealistic for them to fall that far behind that they can't basically catch up. But this does make me a little bit nervous. So what could happen, and I'm afraid would happen, just like the whole meeting was about them also not only developing the central bank currency, but also outlawing stable coins, and outlawing that just so that they can push their own CBDC, their own digital currency. And that gets a little bit scary. There's a lot of Bitcoin's price and this whole ecosystem's price is kind of tied to Tether, with a lot of that Tether FUD. And if Tether exploded, it could be really bad for the cryptocurrency market. They could basically tank it, basically almost down to nothing because a lot of money is tied up in Tether. Now, I have heard some other reports and estimates about what might happen if, let's say Tether, did implode or something like that. It would basically, some of the people holding Tether may lose that money, but some others say that, if something like that were to come down the line, then people would no longer hold Tether. I mean, there's billions of dollars in Tether, if not millions, that would have to basically go somewhere. And really your only position to go when you're in Tether is basically back into BTC. You could basically go to USDC or something like that, but I think a lot of people really prefer just to jump out of Tether and get right into an altcoin or right into BTC. So, having Tether implode, if the people could remove their money from Tether, to be able to jump right back into BTC, because obviously if Tether had problems, then it's probably going to shake the whole stablecoin market, and you may be better off and safer in Bitcoin than you would in another stablecoin. So that's kind of like some wild speculation there of what could happen. I mean, there's a lot of talks about Tether imploding back in 2017, 2018. Nothing really come of it. I guess they had their audits and stuff like that, and it seemed a little sketchy, but I guess it passed enough, to get by. But currently, the only examples of that are the bank-to-bank transactions of the digital yen between places like China and the United Arab Emirates. Barr built on these concerns by asking about China directly. Is the U.S. on track? Is the U.S. on track to concede a competitive advantage to China in this area? Robert Baldwin, the head of policy for the Association for Digital Asset Markets, was less concerned. Privacy concerns and the lack of capital control over China's offering could make the dollar more appealing by comparison. The U.S. needs to catch up to Chinese development, but when the U.S. presents its own alternative, there's an obvious incentive for the current system, to utilize an American-based system, he said. So now, one good thing about the U.S. creating their own, the U.S. dollar is already the world reserve currency. I doubt that everyday people, in China are really, spending, the world reserve currency or, know about these things. But as we talk about right here, some observers have speculated that China's digital yen will be used as a surveillance tool to track its citizens. It's imperative, according to some in Congress, that the architecture of the digital dollar does not carry the same capabilities. For that reason, Representative Tom favored a more private lending solution. Any attempt to craft a central bank digital currency that enables the Fed to provide retail bank accounts and mobilize the CBDC rails into surveillance tools able to collect all sorts of information on Americans would do nothing but put the United States on par with China's digital authoritarianism. Now, I agree with that completely, and that is the one main real reason that I am against the CBDCs. It's just too much control there for the Fed and the central banks to not only be able to take and freeze your money and take your money and give it to you whenever they want. But not only that, it's a surveillance tool to know where you're at, what you're doing, what you're spending it on, what's really going on. And that is huge for me. That is a huge red flag, and I would just assume use Tether. I trust Tether more than I do the US dollar, but even Tether's a little bit shaky. So just want to cover this, guys, and give you guys an idea of what's going on. The US is falling behind. And at least they understand this now, and they're seeing this now. They kind of took Bitcoin as a joke before, and it's kind of pushing, not only its stablecoin is kind of like technology that's come off of Bitcoin and blockchain, but they kind of ignored Bitcoin as a whole, and that's one thing. It's just a digital asset that's traded, kind of. But now there's this new technology that's coming into play, and that was with stablecoins and digital assets. And now it's a little bit more important that they kind of get on this system and this technology, not so much the asset, but more on the technology. And they feel like they're falling behind. So, hopefully they don't do anything crazy like lock everything down and, and basically outlaw stable coins. This could be bad for things like Gemini and other things like that. Or they just have to jump ship and go to another country that allows it. But that's it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Leave me a thumbs up, like, subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks.